Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, you got our instant reactions to the Matt Ishbia, James Jones, Josh Bartelstein triple-headed monster press conference. Now we're here to deconstruct the nitty-gritty of what was said, the good, the bad, and what's next. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm Brendon, Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen late on a Thursday evening into Friday. Don't forget Locked On Suns, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So click that follow or subscribe button. Do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer and get locked on to the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. Today's episode, folks, is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We gave you a beautiful, I would say, nice Arizona day right outside the Suns practice facility. The minute we finished with the press conferenses,
Ishbia tried to stop us.
He did. We could have
came
included some footage of Matt shaking our hands in the video. It was on. It was going. I don't know if he knew.
I decided to go against it because I wanted to post. I was like, Matt Ishbia, certified everydayer, but he definitely didn't know the camera was rolling. So I didn't want to do that, but it was funny. He came up and he was like, Brendon, I know you. Who the hell is this guy?
Well, I don't know if that's good or bad. I did interview him once about Diana Taurasi, so I guess there's that too. But we got a lot to dig into. Joining me as always from the Wild West Valley, my fellow Suns credentialed media member who spoke before he was introduced. How are we feeling? Ben Garcia.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize.
You're allowed, but
I didn't.
What if people don't know who you are? You're just some guy coming through the speakers.
I guess that's a good point. I was going to say so unprofessional of me. Listen,
your only name literally is on the screen, so obviously everyone knows who you are.
Only one of us have cursed and needed it to be bleeped out so far, Brendon. So
punished myself because I had to edit it and add like 6 extra gigs to the file because somehow that always happens. But let's dive in because there is honestly too much for one episode. Like you said earlier, when we did that reaction, we could talk about this for the next week if we really wanted to, and we probably will. But the part that I think we really need to dig in on here from like 20 or so minutes of Matt Ishbia speaking, Ben, is his insistence and sort of the way that he talked about this idea of his involvement or over-involvement as a decision maker for the franchise. Now, I have a clip here we'll play of him explaining some of that. We'll just start there and we'll react to his words and what's good and bad and real and not real about it. Here you go.
So the vision starts with me delivering for what the fans want, right? Which is a competitive team that's fun to watch, that competes out there and has a chance of winning a championship, right? And so that's what I believe. And so I'm not a believer that an owner, I'm going to buy a team and I'm going to buy the team and I'm going to go sit in the box and just watch and just cheer them on. And not like I have to be accountable as well. And just like any owner of any business, right? But I think the delineation when people talk new owners and like people are just silly. Like, is Matt making calls to the GM to make a trade? And what does Ishbia think about this draft pick? Like I think what my front office thinks about it, right? Like I'm with them, and like now, do I have to have the right front office, the right scouts, the right personnel? Of course, and that's on me. But new owner syndrome. That's just what the media likes to say.
Ben, there were many comments about this. This is just probably the one that encapsulates his thoughts best. What did you think?
It's always funny when he'll be like, when he's like, or anyone goes, oh, that's just what the media says. I'm like, that's us. Like we're legitimately the media, Matt. Anyways, the first part of it, he kind of contradicted himself because I know what he was trying to say, but I think it did come out wrong, at least to some people. It's almost like the inverse of the Devin Booker thing from last week where he said, I'm going to be up in the stands, but I'm not just going to be up there cheering and doing the Steve Ballmer type of thing where he's going to give the money and he's also going to be a fan of the team. But then he went into, before, like, I wasn't the one who drafted Ryan Dunn. I'm not taking calls to GMs. It's like, okay, so which is it? And that kind of goes to the theme of the press conference. There was a lot of accountability, and I really appreciated that. But there was a little bit of uncertainty and some question marks to some things like, okay, things we'll get into later. Like, what are you talking about when it comes to identity? What are you talking about when it comes to you personally and what your role is? Why are James Jones and Mark and Josh Bartelstein here? And so it was just a few things where, like, I get what he was saying, and it does feel like to me that there is at least some clarity, but that beginning part kind of was like, huh? That's the way I took it. What about you?
So after sitting on it for a while, I would say that it comes off as kind of like a pat on the back to whoever, media trained him before this, right? Because it was a very semantic argument, a very semantic kind of way to put it, where it's like, I'm not, he even gave, at a different point, he gave the example of Ryan Dunn. Like, do you think I went and watched Ryan Dunn at Virginia, or that I had an idea about what his scouting tape looked like and all that stuff? No. Am I whatever? I don't think anyone is accusing him of that. I wouldn't expect it would be like real crazy if he was that granularly involved, and I don't think it would fly with a GM or whatever. But that's not the stuff that people are taking issue with. And so it felt like he was kind of diverting away and around like what the actual problem and complaint really is when it comes to him on this stuff. I pulled up I don't remember what Twitter account, and I apologize, but it's a story that's public. It was from the Kevin Durant trade story from Woj 2 years ago. And it was bringing back up what exactly happened there, right? Which was that the Suns were pursuing John Collins as of the day of the trade deadline until Matt Ishbia got word that Mikal Bridges was the holdup, and he basically shoved it across the finish line. This was the line in the story. On the direction of his new owner, Matt Ishbia, general manager James Jones texted Nets GM Sean Marks sometime after 11 p.m., and it wouldn't be long until Ishbia and Nets owner Joe Tsai had cobbled together the final elements of a historic trade. I was in real time an example where he literally did what he's saying he did not do in this quote, in this answer that we just played. Am I calling people on the phone about trades? I mean, literally, yes. That happened according to what we heard at the time. So, no, we don't think you're at University of Virginia at a practice. That would be crazy. But you are very much clearly instrumental in the biggest possible decisions that are happening here. You know what I mean? And so I think that is, until that changes, I don't think people are going to feel satisfied.
Damn, Brendon, that's a really good argument. Completely forgot about that story of him. That was legitimately the argument, is he was the one that pushed it over the line, because the Suns were either Cam Johnson or Mikal Bridges. You can't have both. It was absolutely Ishbia that pushed that over. Now, that was a year and a half ago. Maybe even Ishbia forgot about it
at this point, basically.
Yeah. Oh, that is, you're right. That was 2.5 years ago. Maybe even Ishbia forgot that he had done that. And maybe there was a bit of new owner syndrome where he wanted to come in and make a splash. In his defense, I haven't seen anything since then where he has feel like been in the room with trades. Tyus Jones. I mean, first off, they haven't really made a lot of trades, but Tyus Jones, Bradley Beal was Bartelstein's guy. So although I'll give you the Kevin Durant thing, and that's a big caveat that, I mean, I wish I would have thought of in real time, where it's like, oh, dude, you're lying. But for the most part, I do believe him that he's not in there playing my GM on 2K.
Maybe not, but I think regardless of again, it's semantic. Like, I think the bottom line is, even if the KD trade might be a little bit of an exception in that he was like that deliberately, directly involved, I think the overall push and force to say, like he even admitted in a different answer today, he said, patience is not my thing. I'm not going to be patient. I'm going to make a change quickly. If that's in your ear, and you're James Jones, you're Josh Bartelstein, you're any of the assistant GMs on the front office staff, that's affecting how you do business, even if it's not necessarily each and every constant move. You know what I mean? It's, hey, let's turn one far off pick into 3. Let's not just let Yusuf Nurkic chill on the bench or whatever for the rest of the season. Let's actively give stuff up to get rid of him. You know what I mean? Or the Beal trade, the Ayton trade. We can't even wait one more second to see how Ayton looks with Vogel. We gotta do something. You know what I mean? Like, there are a lot of moves you can point to throughout his tenure here where that directive, that mentality of go, 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 change, push, I do think has come back to bite the Suns, even if he wasn't the one who called Joe Cronin to trade DeAndre Ayton or whatever else.
Sure, and I get that. The one thing that I will always respect an owner for doing is the lack of patience. But I don't really like to put it like that. I like to put it as, I like the fact that Matt Ishbia is very aggressive. Now this year, trading Yusuf Nurkic, again, it is second-round picks, although you're right, probably shouldn't have just sent him away. They were throwing a Hail Mary. It didn't work out. I do and will always appreciate the fact that Matt Ishbia is very aggressive. He also mentioned today in the presser that
it was a first with Nurkic, by the way, just so they gave up quite a bit.
They didn't give up a
first.
It
was a 2026 first-round pick, and then they got a second back and Cody Martin. Yeah.
What? No, they gave up 3 second-round picks in Nurkic.
No, they gave up 3 second-round picks to get Richards. Those were 2 separate trades. I think you're mixing them up.
Oh, you're right. Those were
Hornets,
2 separate
they
trades.
double-dipped with the Hornets, but they did give up a first to get off of Nurk. I'm just saying, like, that is...
You're right.
They keep going. They always do. They do whatever it takes to get every move done. And, like, aggressive is one thing, but if you believe in a move, you got to give it time, I think, sometimes. Like, if it was the aggressive move in one situation, how are you all the way off it 6 months later?
I think you can be. And what I do like about Ishbia, what I will continue to like about Ishbia is his aggressiveness and aggressive wins. Now, there is being aggressive to a fault. I still don't fault him for going after Kevin Durant. I don't fault him for going after Bradley Beal. Clearly, those 2 things did not work at the end of the day. But what we also did hear from him was he is willing to be, quote-unquote, patient if he likes the direction of where the team is going. So, although next year might not be a championship caliber team, he did mention it. If it takes a little bit, that's fine, as long as I see the direction and be like, oh, you guys are right, let's do it this way. Now, again, that falls into the how much control does Ishbia have, and does he need to go be a little bit of Steve Ballmer a little bit and just go sit on the sidelines and cheer for the team? It's really interesting, man. I gotta be honest with you. The first, I was like, I do kind of believe Ishbia a little bit that it's not a lot of him, but damn, that Kevin Durant argument that you made is pretty damning to where, like, okay, now you kind of are talking out of 2 ends of your mouth, but at the end of the day, I like what Ishbia does. I'll continue to sing his praises. And I don't think he's as involved to what some people think. Maybe he's a little too involved and he'll learn from that. But I don't think it's as bad as some people think.
I don't think it's permanent, but everything that I've heard and read meaning like on TV. I'm not trying to ever pretend like I'm some kind of insider, just to clarify for anybody listening, but read anything from reporters throughout his time here. I would go so far as to say he seems like he is one of the most involved owners in the NBA. Let's get to what he wants this to look like. Identity was the buzzword of the day. What does that actually mean? Next. First, today's show is brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time, and with Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing development, design, and more, experts who are ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, marketing, and more. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Hey, it's just the reality, I think, in 2025 that a lot of people are doing gigs, doing freelance, doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that to add up to one real job. My father-in-law's a photographer, kind of. I mean, I've been freelancing most of my adult life. I know plenty of people out there. Hey, you drive Uber, you do a little bit of artistic something, you do marketing over there, whatever. We're all there. We're all doing it. And Upwork's the place to get everybody together. And if you run a business, find that talent all in one place. So go to Upwork.com right now. Post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. All right, Ben, let's keep it rolling here. Matt Ishbia really wants an identity for this team. You mentioned it there at the end of that last segment where he talked about how, hey, we might not, win. He said, I think verbatim or close to it, like there may be seasons where we lose even more games than the 46 we did this season. But even in those seasons, his promise was you will recognize the identity and the kind of culture on the court of what this team is. Now, he threw around some words in there that I think are a little vague, some that were more specific. But let's play a clip that he had about Matt Ishbia. He is Matt Ishbia, about Mike Budenholzer and why they moved on from him, that maybe can start to kind of form our thoughts here.
So I'll say, Coach Bud, that change was made. Didn't need more evaluation. Everything's going to be evaluated, but it's going to start with me being accountable and setting an identity, and then making sure that the identity we set for Phoenix Suns is set from the ownership. The fans are going to love it and be proud of it. The front office is aligned. The coaches are aligned. The players are aligned. And there's going to be players that sometimes we don't take the most talented player because they don't align with what we believe in. And so those are the changes I'm going to be focused on right now. And then they'll all will fall into line. And we are going to be making changes, and there's going to be things that are going to be different.
Without having to play a bunch of clips or read a bunch of quotes from what he said, we were both there, Ben. What do you feel like how would you describe what the identity is that Matt Ishbia was kind of getting at with a lot of his answers today?
The only reason why I believe he was going with this type of archetype of player is because he referenced the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had said in a different quote where he was like, when you talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, you already know what kind of player I'm talking about. And I'm like, okay, what I get from that is he's looking to replicate. It feels like any team that says like, oh, when you say Pittsburgh Steelers, when you say the San Antonio Spurs, like, you know what they're talking about. And they're all virtually a small variation of the same player, where tough as nails, gritty, willing to do the dirty work, athletic, probably a little bit on the younger side if we're just talking about the inverse of what the Suns are now. That's what I got from it, because anytime anyone says any of those things, like a certain team and a certain player and a certain head coach, it's almost always the variation of the same thing on the good side. When you're talking about a team who's got issues, it's almost always the same bad thing on that side, meaning lazy,
effort.
Care too much, right? Effort. Exactly. So it seems like to me he's looking for a team that cares. And just because I say that, the Bud stuff, man, he sounded pissed when talking about Ishbia. Like, I don't think that they will ever talk again. Like, they don't like each other. That's how much he was annoyed with Budenholzer. So that's where I think it is.
I got to say, it made me come back to the same question. We don't have to spend time on it because he's gone, but like, why they didn't just fire him sooner. I still just kind of wonder that. But as far as the identity stuff goes, I agree. I tend to be probably a little bit cynical or cautious about that type of talk. Like, I'll just admit that it doesn't really work on me very well, even with the ones where it's real. Like, even times like the Steelers or something where it obviously the proof is there, I'm still kind of like, all right, but that's not the only way you can win. That's just like they happen to get the right mix of guys, and then you describe them, and then that becomes what the Steelers are. But it's like, well, okay, but they happen to draft a different guy. They still could be just as good, and you wouldn't describe it the same way. Like, I think it really comes back to talent and greatness of the talent. But I think that it's like admirable that he's aiming for this. But here's what I would say. I think that what I get from this, and I know I'm putting a lot of eggs in this basket, but I think that that almost could be like part of a LinkedIn job posting for the next lead executive of the team, right? That to me, that was Matt Ishbia saying, I know this is what we've been lacking. I don't know how the hell to get it. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know exactly what those players are going to look like who bring it to us. I don't know how to get it out of the people in this organization necessarily, but I am ready to lock in with whatever that vision and identity is going to be, right? Like, and so I don't have a problem with that personally, to not know. Because again, like, I wanted to see humility today. And to be able to say, like, we need an identity, but I don't personally know what that identity is. I almost think there's a way where you can switch that to a positive if you really want to, or you look hard enough, assuming they actually find somebody who brings that identity eventually. But for right now, as I said earlier, it's kind of like the prologue of the book of the offseason. It's kind of what you do want to hear. And I'm glad you say you don't know, because you just got your butts kicked for 2 years. If you're trying to tell me you knew, then I would say, well, then what happened? Why didn't you build it? Right? So it's like, I understand that, but I think the silver lining, the good thing you can take from this is that he is admitting that they have this need, and he is at least kind of humbling himself enough to ask for it rather than just preaching at us what he thinks it is.
Yeah, and just so I can play off that really quickly, we use the Steelers comparison because that's what he said. When you say like the type of player, personally to me, I believe that comes from culture. So I don't think it's necessarily about the players. I think it's necessarily about the culture that you're encapsulating here in Phoenix, which is you want to insert a culture, and that stems, I think, from the president of basketball operations, Matt Ishbia, down to the head coach. And that is a tough as nails guy, overlooked. Obviously, the players, you want them to be younger. Like, that is instilled through culture. I don't think you just find a collection of players that are all the same person. I think it's just.
Well, and you mentioned James Jones, like, and culture. And what's funny is, like, they had it when it was just him calling the shots, right? Like, they had that, I think, type of identity where you knew a Phoenix Suns player almost to a fault. Like the Jalen Smith pick, to me, is an example of where they overcorrected in the direction of good dude, a little older, more experienced, maybe more skill than force and athleticism, and fit together over pure talent, right? Like, we knew what a James Jones player was until February of 2023, when it stopped being all about James Jones players and some other voices came in. So we've seen what that can look like. I just think maybe that's the answer. Maybe it just goes back to that. If James Jones can get in his ear and kind of reclaim a little bit of that authority here, or maybe it's somebody else's, a David Griffin or anybody else's kind of vision for what that type of player is going to be. But I do think the intentions are correct. You do need that. And I like that he's not, again, preaching at us of what it is. But again, go do it. That's
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Really quickly, like, do you believe him? Like, I agree that there was real humility today. I don't like from anyone, this is just not an Ishbia thing, but we've done a lot of other really good things. Like Matt, I know you're a good guy. You gave us free Suns. I've defended you on that. The food's cheaper. I've defended you on that. I think
the time has just expired on that, where if you remember coming in for Sarver, that was really important, because this was a company that had lawsuits against it for toxic workplace and everything else. So getting that stuff on track was important, but it's been almost 3 years, and that stops ringing, so it doesn't matter as much at a certain point.
And it's not fair.
It's what you should do, even though a lot of companies aren't like that. People just, okay, well, great, you're doing the bare minimum. I know that's not really what it is, but that's what people hear, I think.
Yeah, and what we're not saying is he's done the bare minimum. He's done obviously more than that, but whether it's fair or not, that's not what people care about, which is like, I know that's not saying what you and I don't care about. I think these people need to be protected.
But people don't buy season tickets because it's a good place to work.
150%. So that's where I would go with that as well.
Do I believe him? I believe him that he wants it. And I think we can get into the other buzzword of the day, which was change. And that's what I think really will tell us how much he means it. We'll get there next. First today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Well, we all do, of course. We all have. Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment and beyond, it's easy to lose track, but that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. The best part of Monarch Money, guys, is that it is all in one place, right? Because we all have a calculator on our phone. We got a bank app. We got this thing that's tracking some spending in this type of category. We got a notebook in our desk where we write down some lunches we bought and a receipt in our back pocket, whatever. Monarch Money says, hey, put it all in here, and you never have to think about it again because we got your back. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. All right, Ben. Last but not least, change. Change was the other buzzword of the day, and probably even more vague than identity, I would say. Because we talked about this in that YouTube reaction video where we were like, in some ways you could question why Josh Bartelstein and James Jones even spoke today. So before we get any further, and we'll talk a little bit about the coach, I think, here too again, but let's just hear from James Jones first about his job security, and then CEO Josh Bartelstein.
My job is to make sure the how is done and executed flawlessly. And so that comes with me taking some of the initiative, but it's also being smart enough and aware enough to enlist the help of people whose true passion and true incentive is to make sure that this basketball thing runs right. And so we do it together. We'll always do it together. When it comes to basketball, that's me. That's my area of focus. I own that. I stand by that, and my job is to make sure we continue to improve. We change in the right ways, and if that means changing roles, if that means changing responsibilities, from year to year, those things change from moment to moment, but ultimately, whatever is best for the team is what we do.
All right, so like 2 seconds of that was revealing. The rest was pure James Jones, peak James Jones
saying
answer.
nothing.
Let's get to Bartelstein.
My job is to carry out his vision, and that's for the Mercury, the Suns, the business, the basketball, the Valley Suns now as well. We've done a lot of those things to kind of hit on those pillars, and also to be able to advise and assist in basketball. We've done a lot of really, really good things, and Matt thinks differently. He pushes us. I think that's why we've been celebrated a lot for doing those things on the business side, but winning matters too. So I feel comfortable in my role because I know that what he wants to do, my job is to be here every single day doing it, but we got to do better here and we will.
All right, so the part that I think was revealing from James Jones was that he acknowledged that he would be open to a change in role. He said that specifically. That's at least a little bit of an answer as to how maybe the future could look for him. But the bottom line from both of those answers to me, Ben, is both of them have no clue. So they didn't have anything to say.
None. I don't know why they were up there. After, like, what I really appreciated, pat on the back to us, is like, we did a 50, you can see like our 15-minute instant reaction. We just got out of it 5 minutes ago. We didn't have a second to digest it. Like, these were our first thoughts. And then it gave me 5 hours at this point to be like, why the hell were they even there? And not only that, it felt like to me, like anytime anyone asked a question, they were like almost, you want to talk about who had good media training? James Jones and Bartelstein, I guess somehow also had some good media training where whatever question was asked, they reverted it back to, yeah, everything's all good. We have to change it this way, but they didn't really say much. And they spoke for like 10 minutes. They pretty much cut everyone off. Matt Ishbia spoke for about a half an hour. And so I don't know, man. Here's what I would say is, and I tweeted this out, and 100%, I am not a reporter either. I'm not breaking news. All I can tell you is the vibe of what I felt, and I think you felt this too. If you were someone who thought you wanted James Jones or Josh Bartelstein fired or moved to a different role, if I were just putting money on it because they didn't give me any inclination to think otherwise, I would say both guys are coming back.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you? Would
Yeah.
you say it's more likely that they're getting a new boss, or more likely that those two guys are stepping out the door?
I think it's a little bit different for each one, right? Because
Okay.
again, as I've said with Josh Bartelstein, every time that he's kind of come up for the whole time he's worked here, before even you and I were doing this together, but especially as his job has been called for lately, is he's technically not involved in basketball. Like, in the way that even those answers told us, he described his job as executing Ishbia's vision. James Jones described his job as building a basketball team, right? So like, Josh, they could hire a president of basketball operations, and like, I know it's kind of fake anyway, but like that person probably wouldn't be Josh Bartelstein's boss, right? Whereas it would be James Jones's boss. So what I think we could maybe see, if I'm giving people hope that change, which Ishbia keeps saying, and frankly, if you look at John Gambadoro's Twitter feed, he keeps telling us this, but in also very vague terms, which tells me Gambo just doesn't quite know what that's going to look like yet either. And frankly, maybe nobody does. Maybe nobody knows, and that's why everybody is just using these generalities. But what I think it could look like is that Bartelstein is maybe diverted a little bit away from being involved with this stuff. Now, that's something where they're not going to release a press release telling us that. They're not going to say, hey, Josh Bartelstein will no longer be in the room on draft night. They're not going to tell us, but it might just happen organically, right? Like Ishbia might kind of just say, hey, you're the business guy. We tried it. Your input was valued, but we have different people coming in. And then Jones could maybe have somebody hired above him, like I keep saying. That would be a way to still get change, but also would still make sense based on what we heard today, which was, as I agree with you, two guys who didn't seem like they were about to be axed.
It almost seemed like, because James Jones has been doing this for a long time, and I gotta be honest with you, he's pretty good at just like spinning things.
Oh, yeah.
That if you would have told me Ishbia told them the same time they told us that this was going to take place last night, you and I got an email at 10:30 p.m. to be there at 11. If you were to tell me that Matt Ishbia told them they were going to speak at 10:30 p.m. last night too, I would have believed it, because Bartelstein looked like, it looked like he was just like, I don't know, man. I was given a script and I'm just supposed to be saying these things. I don't know what else to say. It felt like the number one thing they said, do not bleeping say, is you've had any say in anything in terms of basketball. Keep it all to business. Let James handle the hard stuff, which is why I believe they sent them both up there together, because at the beginning of the season, they did not do that. They were separate. It was 1-1 and 1. I think they did that to kind of shield Bartelstein a little bit from maybe tougher questions, his involvement with the team. And again, like I said before, Ishbia spoke for 30 minutes. The other two guys spoke for 10, 12 minutes. They didn't, they were ready to get him in and out. So
it's almost like, in a way, you could look at them, the organization having those two guys speak, which was probably decided by some combination of Ishbia and the PR team.
100%.
Was almost just to, because if they didn't, then everybody would be talking about how they're gone. So this, even though it was not great to have them go out there and still be talking about change all the time, at least now it's kind of like you and I are sitting here saying, well, they're probably staying and we'll just kind of wait. And the noise does go down a little bit. So maybe in a way I can see why they chose to do it that way, even though it was uncomfortable for all involved. But the last thing I'll ask you before we get out of here, because this is our last episode of the week, is one of the more specific answers we did hear from when these two guys were speaking was that I believe James Jones said his regret about the two past searches, coaching searches, and why they didn't work was that they went too fast. And I thought that was more insightful than most answers that he gives, and most answers that you really hear at this kind of press conference, like in sports. Like that was like, okay, wow, like that's a real thing here. And Matt Ishbia said, hey, we're not going to be don't expect to hear a name, April 24th, a week from today or anything.
He said 2 weeks. He said, don't expect to hear anything for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, so, and that made me believe that it's going to be a while. Sorry, continue.
No, that's where I was going. So to me, that's good. And I guess the only lingering question on my mind, and you don't have to pick up on this if it's not where you were headed, but I'm just wondering, some of the answers I heard today made me feel like a coach could be more involved than Vogel and Bud were, like as part of kind of creating and instilling whatever this identity that they're in search of might be. And some of the answers made me think they're just going to hire a hotshot young guy coach who can kind of just like rally the troops. And maybe it'll depend on who that ends up being, but I guess the bottom line is I don't have like a great feel after this of what the coach thing's going to look like.
I really hate sitting on a fence. That's why I try not to do that here. I try to tell you where I lean. I don't know. There were some things about this conference where I'm left with more questions than answers. One thing that I will say is I actually believe Gambo. Like, I believe Gambo 99% of the time, but like, I actually believe Gambo when he's told that they have no list. I'm sure in passing they've talked or sent a text message like, hey, what about this guy? But I don't think they have any idea on where they're going with their next head coach at all. I think they're going to wait for the dust to settle.
I agree. I would say that one thing that caught my ear is that they were talking, all three of them were talking so much about what's working in the modern NBA right now when it comes to building the roster and defense and things like that. I just sort of hear that and I'm like, well, the easy place to start, if that's what you're realizing, is that you just were kind of going in the wrong direction with your overall philosophy and other teams are outclassing you. Well, go try to poach an assistant coach from one of the teams that's winning. I mean, like, I know that sounds basic, but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the names that we hear are from Boston, from Houston, from Cleveland. You know, I think that's at least that's where I would start if I'm trying to turn things around, is say, hey, let's take the brain trust behind the guys that just killed us for the past 2 years.
Sorry, I was just kind of thinking about it. And I'm like, yeah, those would be the teams that we would think of, or like a Minnesota or a Denver, like those kind of teams that either have had really good rosters or again, just mentored under a good coach. Mike Malone was, I thought, a good coach.
Just
Chris
to
Finch
give names. So Mike Honori's in Minnesota. He got a lot of attention last year because he had to fill in for Chris Finch. Sam Cassell's in Boston. That's a name. He played for the Suns for half a season. Johnny Bryant in Cleveland is a guy that I've always liked. He's passed through a bunch of places now. He's the associate head coach under Kenny Atkinson. Houston, Royale Ivy, we talked about. He's more of a KD guy. I don't think they would trade for KD and then let us hire the guy away here in Phoenix, but that maybe could happen. Those are the kinds of names with the Mavs.
I agree with you, man. But like, I don't.
Robert Sarver would have hired Jared Dudley yesterday, but I don't know if that's what's going to happen here. I think he'll probably come up. Yeah, but just sticking on, like I said, the teams that have won recently, those were just 100%. To give people a little bit of food for thought for who I'm thinking of when I say that. But that'll wrap us up. Hit follow or subscribe if you have not already.
Spoelstra.
Become an everydayer. We'll have episodes for you into next week. Although if they fire or hire anybody this weekend, we'll do something, but I don't think that's happening. Enjoy your weekend,
guys ask nicely.
We'll catch you then.